Hi everyone, my name is Emily Babb, and for my midterm case study presentation, I am going to be doing it over Huntington's disease. So let's go ahead and get into it. So, what is Huntington's disease? Huntington's is a devastating hereditary and degenerative brain disorder. It is the hyperkinetic movement disorder that is due to a dysfunction in the basal ganglia. And the basal ganglia is primarily responsible for motor control, but it's also responsible for motor learning, executive functions, and behaviors, and also emotions. And these are all affected by Huntington's. So, as I said, Huntington's affects cognition, motor, and behavior, and individuals with this disease are slowly affected in their abilities to walk, talk, and reason. So moving on to the pathophysiology. So Huntington's is caused by a mutation in the gene Huntington, coded as HTT, on chromosome 4 and the abnormal repetition of CAG DNA sequence. So pretty much this in layman's terms means a parent passes on a mutated Huntington gene, and that gene then tells the body to create an unusually long protein, which then causes further complications. So to get super technical with this, the caudate nucleus atrophies, the inhibitory medium spiny neurons in the corpus striatum degenerate, and the levels of GABA and substance P decrease. So the more this CAG DNA sequence repeats, the earlier the disease becomes prevalent in individuals, and the phenotype, and that's the physical characteristics of the disease, become more severe, like the chorea, which are the involuntary jerky movements, dystonia, which are the involuntary muscle contractions, behavioral difficulties, and cognitive decline. So all of these play a role into the pathophysiology of Huntington's disease. So for risk factors, there's pretty much only one risk factor, and that is having a parent with Huntington's. So a child of a parent with it has a 50% chance of inheriting that gene. And if they do have the Huntington's disease gene, then they will for sure develop the disease in their lifetime, usually in their 30s or 40s, but in some rare cases, they will develop it in their childhood or adolescence. So some of the symptoms and complications of Huntington's are trouble with feeding oneself, trouble with swallowing, uncontrolled movements, which would be the slow or jerking, the chorea, uncontrollable muscle contraction, which is dystonia, loss of memory and judgment, changes in speech and personality, disorientation and confusion, and ultimately paranoia, hallucinations, and even psychosis. So obviously, this disease is just extremely difficult and a life-altering thing to deal with. So it is so important that we treat these individuals with care and empathy. We should encourage them to join and participate in various activities if they're able to participate in it. It's definitely essential that they get regular social contact, exercise, and sunlight. And the sunlight especially helps as a natural mood booster for them, as depression is a common symptom. So moving on to special considerations. So at the moment, there is no cure or anything available to slow the progression. And honestly, this is just very upsetting because this disease begins in a person's prime working years and when they have just started or are wanting to start a family. Genetic tests are available to see if an individual has the faulty gene, thankfully, so people don't have to, live their whole lives without knowing if they're going to develop it or not. And it does affect both men and women, but for some reason, females present more symptoms than males. And something I wanted to touch on was the Huntington's Disease Society of America. It is a nonprofit organization, and it provides resources, community services, education, advocacy, and research for all of those affected by this horrible disease. So for the prognosis, unfortunately, this disease, it really does only worsen over time. Some of the last symptoms include major difficulty swallowing, significant weight loss, and vast communication difficulties. They usually die within 10 to 30 years of onset of developing the symptoms. And death is caused commonly by infections, usually pneumonia, and fall-related injuries. So, to sum this up, so hopefully with our ever-evolving technological and scientific advancements in society, we can one day find a cure for Huntington's and officially put an end to this horrible disease. So, this is my source and APA reference page, and thank you guys for taking the time to listen to my presentation, and I look forward to listening to your guys' as well. Thank you. Have a nice day.